country living. I grew up in a mud-wood 2-room house that I shared with 11 brothers and sisters and 3 parents. The 2 rooms we shared also connected to something like a veranda. There was a storeroom attached to the house with a summer room above it, only much more primitive. We were forced to sleep there whenever the humid summer months became overbearing. We would all 15 of us sleep on the floor, covered with mosquito nets. Traditional Taleshi homes were made of timber and mud mixed with hay, and the poorest families would have to cover their roofs with rice straw, which is the cheapest material available. The rich and middle-class families covered the roofs of their houses with wooden sheeting, tiles, and sheet metal. Storms would often blow away the hay with which my father thatched our roof, and rain would come pouring down into our house. Our financial difficulties prevented my father from ever fixing our roof properly. On rainy days, we placed all our pots and bowls under the leaking ceiling to keep the rooms as dry as we could. Our family owned a small rice farm, which did not have good soil and sadly never produced enough to feed us. In order to meet our most basic provisions, my mother, stepmother, and older sisters were forced to work on other farms. Having enough food for our family was always a struggle. We often ate rice 3 times a day, with the rice as a side dish that could consist of walnut, yogurt, milk, butter, cheese, egg, vegetable jam, or both homegrown and wild herbs. Sometimes we could afford to have more side dishes with our rice. Rarely could we eat chicken or meat or fish with our rice. Our parents preferred to keep them for the feast days or when we had visitors. During the seasons of sowing and harvesting crops, every family member was expected to work and help. While the adults were out working in the fields, the children would gather firewood, prepare meals for the entire family, and haul water from neighborhood springs or wells. Sometimes we would even take our wares to market to sell or trade so we could buy bread and other staples. I do remember preparing and baking the traditional Taleshi flatbread in a clay oven when I was a very young child. The rice harvest arrives at the end of summer, and the new rice is eaten in celebration with neighbors and friends. A colorful table is prepared with the harvested rice and other wonderful and delicious foods. All of the men ate together in one room and the ladies in another, except when all male and females are close family relatives. In this case, they all have their meal together. The traditional way to begin such a celebration is for the father of the family to touch the cooked new rice and begin eating. This signals the commencement of the festivities wherein all those in attendance are able to partake. When everyone has eaten his fill, each person is expected to leave just a spoonful of food on their plate, signifying a blessing on the family for abundance and more rice than is even needed for the entire year. Many people hold their new rice celebrations in the fall. Some very rich families will wait until winter to celebrate the late summer harvest as a sign of the abundance in their lives. But families like mine, who could not afford to wait for the food, held their celebration in the last month of summer after the harvest. We children were filled with excitement during the rice feast because we could eat plenty. For centuries, Taleshis would move to their mountain homes to wait out the extremely humid and mosquito-infested summer months from the time the rice was planted until harvest. The weather was cool and pleasant in the mountains. No bugs, no humidity, only sweet, cool breezes. Taking part in the mountain retreats was wonderful and sometimes inspirational. While my father was alive, we rarely made the trip. It was only after his death that my family was able to save enough money to enjoy those wonderful mountain retreats.